A young boy stood in a field, surrounded by animals, tools, and endless rows of farmland. To everyone around him, his future seemed obvious. He would grow up, work the land, and live the same life his family had lived for generations. But inside that boy's mind, something very different was happening. He kept asking questions nobody else seemed interested in asking. Why did every task take so much time? Why did people depend so heavily on physical labor? Why couldn't machines do more of the work? That boy was Henry Ford, and the answers he searched for would eventually help reshape the modern world. Henry was born on July 30th, 1863, in rural Michigan. His family lived a simple farming life. Days began early and ended late. There were animals to feed, wood to chop, water to carry, and fields to maintain. From the outside, Henry looked like any other farm child. But he wasn't. While others focused on crops and livestock, Henry paid attention to anything mechanical. If a watch stopped working, he wanted to know why. If a tool broke, he wanted to take it apart and understand every piece. His curiosity became stronger with every passing year. One day, when he was still very young, he saw a steam-powered machine at work. The sight amazed him. A task that normally required hours of human effort was being completed by a machine in a fraction of the time. The sounds, the movement, the power, it felt almost magical. For many people, it was just another machine. For Henry, it was a glimpse of the future. After that experience, Henry spent countless hours collecting scraps, studying mechanisms, and experimenting with whatever materials he could find. By his teenage years, he was already building small mechanical projects on his own. People were surprised. Some admired his talent, others thought it was a waste of time. His father hoped Henry would eventually settle into farm life, but Henry's dreams pointed somewhere else entirely. Then, tragedy struck. When Henry was still young, his mother passed away. The loss affected him deeply. She had been one of the few people who encouraged his interests and believed in his potential. Her death left an emptiness that stayed with him for years. But it also strengthened his determination. Instead of giving up, he chose to move forward. At 16, Henry left the farm and headed to Detroit, a growing city filled with workshops, factories, and opportunity. The transition wasn't easy. He worked long hours as an apprentice machinist. The pay was small and the work was demanding. During the day, he repaired equipment and learned practical skills. At night, he studied machinery, read technical materials, and continued teaching himself. He had no university degree, no wealthy supporters, no special advantages. What he had was persistence, and sometimes persistence is more powerful than talent. As the years passed, Henry became a skilled engineer. He earned a position at an electric company and built a solid reputation for solving difficult technical problems. But his real dream still lived inside him. He wasn't interested in simply maintaining machines. He wanted to create something new. At that time, transportation depended almost entirely on horses. Travel was slow, long journeys were difficult. Owning a vehicle was beyond the reach of most ordinary people. Henry believed there had to be a better way. Many people laughed at the idea. They said horse-drawn transportation was good enough. They said machines would never replace horses. They said ordinary families would never need automobiles. Henry listened, then he ignored them. After finishing his regular job each day, he spent countless hours working in a small workshop behind his home. Piece by piece, he assembled parts, tested ideas, and experimented with engines. The process was exhausting. Money was limited, mistakes were frequent, progress was slow. Still, he continued. Eventually, those efforts produced something remarkable. His first vehicle was simple and rough. It had 4 wheels, a lightweight frame, and a small gasoline engine. It looked nothing like the cars we know today, but it moved. When the machine rolled forward under its own power, Henry knew he had crossed an important line. An idea became a reality. The first test drive attracted attention immediately. Curious people gathered to watch. Some were fascinated, some were skeptical. Yet the vehicle worked, and that changed everything. Not long afterward, Henry had the opportunity to discuss his ideas with the famous inventor Thomas Edison. Henry explained his vision: affordable vehicles designed for everyday people rather than the wealthy elite. The encouragement he received during that conversation became a powerful source of motivation. For the first time, someone he respected greatly believed the dream could succeed. Confident and energized, Henry launched his first automobile company.
Unfortunately, reality arrived quickly. The business struggled. Production costs were high. The vehicles were unreliable. Investors became frustrated. Eventually, the company collapsed. Many people viewed the failure as proof that his ideas would never work. Henry saw it differently. He treated failure as information. Instead of blaming others, he studied what went wrong. He analyzed mistakes. He simplified designs. He looked for ways to make automobiles practical and affordable. Most importantly, he refused to quit. To regain public attention, Henry helped build a powerful racing vehicle. The car achieved impressive results and generated excitement. Suddenly, people who had ignored him began paying attention again. Investors returned, new opportunities appeared, and this time Henry was ready. In 1903, a new company was formed, Ford Motor Company. The goal was clear: build reliable vehicles, reduce costs, serve ordinary people. The company's early models achieved moderate success, but Henry still believed something bigger was possible. He wanted a car that farmers could afford, a car workers could buy, a car that could survive rough roads and daily use, a car designed for the majority rather than the minority. For years, he and his team worked toward that goal. They tested ideas, improved designs, solved problems, started over whenever necessary. Finally, in 1908, they introduced the vehicle that would define an era: the Model T. At first glance, it wasn't the most beautiful automobile available. It wasn't the most luxurious. It wasn't the fastest. But it delivered something far more important: freedom. The Model T was durable, practical, and increasingly affordable. People who had never imagined owning a vehicle suddenly saw a possibility. Farmers bought them. Teachers bought them. Small business owners bought them. Workers bought them. For the first time, personal transportation was becoming accessible to ordinary families. Demand exploded. Orders poured in from across the country. Yet success created a new challenge. How could the company build enough cars to satisfy demand while keeping prices low? Most manufacturers produced vehicles slowly and expensively. Henry knew that approach would never achieve his vision. He needed a completely different system, and that system would soon transform not only the automobile industry, but manufacturing around the world. The solution seemed simple, yet its impact would be revolutionary. Instead of workers moving from one task to another, the product itself would move through a carefully organized process. Each worker would focus on a specific step. Each task would become faster. Each movement would become more efficient. The results would change history. The world was about to witness one of the most important innovations of the industrial age. The moving assembly line became the answer. Before this system, building a car required teams of workers gathering around one vehicle and completing many different tasks. It took a long time, cost a lot of money, and limited how many cars could be produced. Henry Ford and his team approached the problem from a different angle. What if the car moved instead of the workers? What if every employee became highly skilled at one specific task? What if production flowed continuously instead of stopping and starting? Those questions led to a manufacturing revolution. Once the assembly line was introduced, production speed increased dramatically. A vehicle that once required many hours to complete could now be assembled in a fraction of the time. As efficiency improved, costs dropped. As costs dropped, prices fell. As prices fell, more people could afford automobiles. It was a cycle that changed society. Year after year, the price of the Model T became lower. Families who once viewed car ownership as impossible suddenly found themselves driving their own vehicles.
Henry Ford wasn't simply selling transportation, he was creating opportunity. People could travel farther for work. Farmers could reach markets more easily. Families could visit relatives living miles away. Entire communities became more connected. The automobile was no longer a luxury, it was becoming part of everyday life. Henry also surprised the business world with another decision. At a time when many companies paid workers very little, he announced a significant wage increase for employees at his factories. The decision shocked competitors. Some thought he had made a serious mistake. Others believed he was being reckless. But Henry understood something important. Workers who felt valued were more likely to stay, perform well, and support the company. In many cases, they could even afford the products they helped create. The decision strengthened the workforce and attracted attention across the country. Soon, manufacturers everywhere began studying Ford's methods. His influence extended far beyond automobiles. He had changed how factories operated. He had changed how products were made, and he had helped define modern industrial production. As the years passed, Ford Motor Company expanded rapidly. Factories grew larger, production numbers increased. Henry's wealth reached levels he could never have imagined as a young farm boy. But success brought new challenges. The same confidence that helped him achieve greatness sometimes became stubbornness. As his influence increased, he grew more controlling. He trusted his own judgment deeply and became less willing to accept criticism or alternative viewpoints. Many great leaders face this danger. The qualities that help create success can become obstacles if they are pushed too far. Henry's company continued growing, and one of his most ambitious projects was a massive industrial complex capable of handling nearly every stage of production. Raw materials entered one end of the operation, finished vehicles emerged from the other. It was an extraordinary achievement and demonstrated the scale of his vision. Yet beneath the success, tensions were developing. The automobile industry was evolving quickly. New competitors appeared. Companies introduced fresh designs, additional features, and greater variety. Customers wanted more choices. Many people within Ford Motor Company recognized these changes. One of them was Henry's son, Edsel Ford. Edsel possessed a different leadership style. He was thoughtful, creative, and interested in modern design. He believed automobiles should be practical, but also attractive and innovative. In many ways, father and son complemented each other. Unfortunately, they often disagreed. Henry preferred simplicity. Edsel encouraged modernization. Henry focused on proven ideas. Edsel looked toward the future. The relationship became increasingly complicated. Although Edsel held important positions within the company, Henry frequently maintained final control over major decisions. This created frustration and tension behind the scenes. Meanwhile, competitors continued gaining ground. One of Henry's greatest strengths had always been confidence, but now that confidence sometimes prevented him from recognizing how much the market was changing. For years, he remained devoted to the Model T. It had transformed the world. It had made him famous. It had built an empire. But customer preferences were evolving. People wanted new designs, new colors, and new features. Eventually, even Henry had to accept reality. The Model T could not remain unchanged forever. In 1927, production finally stopped. The decision marked the end of an era. More than 15 million Model T vehicles had been produced, making it one of the most influential products in history. For many people, the car represented freedom, opportunity, and progress. Yet Henry understood that standing still was no longer an option. The company began developing a successor. The result was the Model A.
Unlike its predecessor, the new vehicle embraced modern styling and improved features. Customers responded enthusiastically. Sales surged once again. The company proved it could adapt. But challenges inside the organization continued. As the years moved forward, the pressure of leadership affected Edsel deeply. He worked tirelessly, carried enormous responsibilities, and often found himself caught between competing expectations. The strain gradually took a toll on his health. Then the world entered one of its most difficult periods. The Second World War transformed industries across America. Factories that once produced consumer products were asked to support national defense efforts. Ford Motor Company became part of that effort. Massive facilities were established to manufacture military equipment, including aircraft. Many experts doubted such large-scale production goals could be achieved. Yet the company's experience with efficient manufacturing systems made extraordinary output possible. What had once been applied to automobiles was now being used for wartime production. It demonstrated once again how powerful organized systems could be. But while the company contributed to history, tragedy struck the Ford family. In 1943, Edsel Ford died at the age of 49. The loss devastated Henry. His son had been more than an executive. He had been family, partner, and future successor. Friends and colleagues noticed a change. The energetic industrial giant who had spent decades shaping the world became quieter and more reflective. Age was also beginning to affect him. His memory weakened. His energy declined. The responsibilities of leading a massive corporation became increasingly difficult. Eventually, the time came for another generation to step forward. In 1945, Henry Ford officially handed leadership of the company to his grandson, Henry III. After more than 4 decades of leadership, the founder stepped away from daily control. The decision marked the closing chapter of an extraordinary career. Retirement brought a slower pace of life. Henry spent more time at his estate, walking through gardens, reflecting on the past, and observing the world he had helped transform. The man who once filled factories with movement now lived more quietly. Yet his influence remained everywhere, on roads, in cities, in factories, in industries across the globe. Everywhere people traveled, traces of his vision could be found. On April 7, 1947, during a stormy evening in Michigan, Henry Ford passed away peacefully at the age of 83. His life had begun on a modest farm. It ended after he helped reshape modern transportation and manufacturing. Yet perhaps his greatest legacy was not a company or a product. Perhaps it was a mindset, a belief that ordinary beginnings do not determine extraordinary endings. His life offers lessons that remain valuable today. Dreams often start small. Failure is rarely the end. Persistence matters more than immediate success. Systems create results that effort alone cannot sustain. Innovation comes from questioning what others accept. And sometimes the biggest obstacle to growth is the belief that there is nothing left to learn. Henry Ford was not a perfect man. He made mistakes. He faced criticism. He experienced personal losses and professional setbacks. But he never stopped building. He never stopped imagining possibilities that others could not yet see. That is why his story continues to inspire people around the world. A farm boy with curiosity became an inventor. An inventor became a businessman. A businessman helped change how humanity moves. And if there is one final lesson hidden inside his journey, it may be this: your circumstances do not define your future. Your willingness to keep moving forward does. Thank you for spending this time with us.
We hope this story helped you improve your English, learn something meaningful, and discover new inspiration along the way. Whatever dream you are working toward, keep learning, keep growing, and keep believing in what is possible. Until next time, take care of yourself and continue moving forward one step at a time.